But anyway, Joe's story was when he was in the Army, uh, the Lord kept dealing with him before he went in the Army and afterwards about preaching. But he got married and while he was in the Army, and she turned out not to be such a faithful wife. And when he came back from overseas, he was over there 4 years.
Oh, wow.
When he got back from overseas, she had two babies, neither one of them his. And and actually
Divorce.
he left, where they didn't get together and everything. And so he didn't know anything about it.
Until he got back?
Didn't know anything about it until he got back. And
I wonder why she even received him. I mean,
and
oh,
so he did, he just kind of said, I don't know what I'm going to do and everything like this. And the Lord called me to preach and everything like this. And he said, well, I can't be a preacher and all this stuff behind me and everything like that. And said he kept fighting it. The Lord just kept impressed him that, he'd called him to preach. And said so he was just driving down one of those country roads there and said that the Lord just dealt with him so much he just flipped over to the side of the road and stopped and got out and said, Lord, he said, I'm not going to fight you any longer. If you want me to preach, well, that's what I'll do. But I said, I don't know how I can be that with, with
the
a family
history.
like I've got and so on and so forth like that. And so he went to work for a while and everything and met a woman, and he married her and they came to school. But she wasn't such a great choice either. I mean, she was a good moral partner, but she was not committed to the ministry.
Mm.
And that was a lot of his problem and everything. I don't know if they had one or two children. They had one when we went to California, and then she had another one after that. But she finally settled in. But the thing of it was, his ministry was a specialty. He was unique in dealing with problems with people. I mean, first time that what really, I'd worked in jail ministries in Corpus before we went to Brownwood. We got there, and so one night, well, the way it worked out, that he would go to the local around there, the local jails there in town and what have you, and talk and have a talk with the people in
the jails.
In the jails and what have you. So there was a group of us would gather together. We'd go out on the old Army Air Base where it had been destroyed. I mean, done away with. This big slab of concrete out there. And so we'd go out there and have our prayer meetings out there. And so one evening we were out there, and a group of us, about 5 or 6 of us, and we were just praying and everything. And Joe says, he says, the Lord has really impressed upon me that we ought to go to Comanche, to the jail in Comanche. Well, he said, I mean tonight, right now. And so, well, I guess it was probably, it wasn't late at night, it was early in the evening.
Uh-huh.
Comanche was only 30 miles away. So we drove over there, and we drove up into the lot of, now you have to understand, we're not talking about a prison system like we've got today.
Right.
We're talking about a rural country type setup.
Little jailhouse.
And we drove up into the parking lot there, and we were pulled up. Well, the car parked there, and a family in it, and the man came out, and the sheriff, deputy sheriff, and came over to the car, and he said, what can I do for you guys? And Joe says, well, we're a group of preachers from, see, Joe is older and mature. So, I mean, he's, really mature. Wasn't one of these college type appearing guys. And, well, as a matter of fact, all of us, a couple of guys were also service
Older.
related, and I was older than average college student. So, the officer says, well, he said, I was fixing to take my wife to the movie. He says, I've got about 7 guys in there. He says, this is misdemeanor type of guy. Most of us in there for alcohol and drunkenness, disorderly conduct, whatever. He says, they're just in here to, till, you know, sentences given to them or something or other. I don't remember that. But he said, well, he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. He didn't know us from anybody. He didn't know us from anybody now. Other than our word that we were students from Howard Bank. The Lord had told us to come over there. He said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, I'll take you in and I'll open up the runaround and put the guys out. He said, right now they're locked up in their section where they sleep.
Uh-huh.
But he said, I'll open it up and let them out so you guys can go in there and talk to them. And he says, he handed the keys to Joe. He says, I'm going to give you the keys. And when you leave, when you come out, lock the door and come out and hang them up right.
Now,
I've heard
is
this
this,
story so many times.
is this in the 1950s? When was
That
this?
was 1951. I mean,
Wow.
Anyway, tell him what